My husband, out of hatred for my sister, wants our children to forget about her. I've been married to my husband for 9 years, and together, we have a son who is 12 and 2 daughters aged 8 and 6. My career is demanding, requiring long hours, so my sister generously helps by looking after our children during the weekdays since she works from home. Our daily routine involves me waking the kids up and dropping them off at my sister's house at 6:30 a.m. before heading to work. She prepares their breakfast and ensures they get to the bus stop on time. After school, the bus brings them back to her place, where she provides snacks and assists them with their homework until my husband picks them up at 5 p.m. I usually return home around 6:30 or 7 p.m. My sister and I share a close bond, and I'm incredibly grateful for all she does. She loves my children dearly, treating them as if they were her own. She's practically a third parent. To show my appreciation, I cover all her grocery expenses, and in return, my kids help her around the house. This past Monday, I received an urgent call from my husband shortly after he picked up the kids. He insisted that I leave work immediately to have an emergency discussion with him at home. Alarmed, I tried calling him back, but he didn't answer. Filled with worry, I rushed home. When I arrived, he dramatically revealed that my sister is gay. He explained that when he went to her house, her girlfriend was there, and they kissed in front of him. I couldn't help but laugh because my sister has been openly gay since I was a teenager, and she's been with her girlfriend for 3 years. He claimed he thought her girlfriend was just a friend, and that any mentions of her being gay were just jokes. Her girlfriend doesn't attend many family events due to her work travels, and our family doesn't frequently discuss my sister's sexuality. Still, I find it hard to believe that he hadn't figured it out in the 13 years he's known. I honestly can't recall if I ever explicitly told him she was gay. My husband then stated he doesn't want her around the kids anymore because she will influence them, but he wouldn't elaborate on what that meant. I told him I wasn't going to cut my sister out of our lives. He suggested that while I could still see her, the kids shouldn't because they are too young. I asked him how he expected us to handle childcare without her, and he suggested I take a week off work while we figure it out, which is absolutely impossible for me. Not wanting to argue in front of the kids, I told him I was going for a walk to calm down, and we could discuss it later. When I returned, I found my daughters crying and my son visibly upset. They told me their father had informed them they weren't allowed to see their aunt anymore because she was having personal issues. I lost my temper and accused my husband of being bigoted and selfish. I told him I wouldn't cut off my sister, especially since he was too oblivious to realize she's gay. I then packed up the kids and went to stay with my sister. I'm at a complete loss about what to do next. I love my husband and don't want a divorce, but there's no way I'm going to cut my sister out of our lives. I can't believe he didn't know she was gay, but I also can't understand why he would lie about it. He's never shown any homophobic tendencies. I know I shouldn't have yelled at him like that, but I was furious that he said those things to the kids. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. D. After reading everyone's comments, I think you all might be right. This behavior is so out of the blue that I was trying to find reasons to believe he wasn't being bigoted. But perhaps he is. If it comes down to choosing between him and my sister, I'm choosing my sister. At this point, I'm so upset with him that I don't know if I would take him back even if he begged on his knees. He said what he said, and he can't take that back. To answer some questions. We don't really talk about politics because he doesn't engage. When I bring something up, he'll just respond with, okay, or uh-huh. Our lives have been so hectic lately that we haven't had much alone time, and when we do, we don't discuss politics. We live in a pretty liberal area, and he's never expressed any right-wing beliefs to me before, so I never thought he held different views. My sister being gay doesn't come up much. Her girlfriend isn't around us or the kids often, and my sister's sexuality isn't a topic of conversation because it's just a part of who she is. She's gay, and that's that. So it doesn't really get discussed. I talked to my sister and she said they don't interact much. When he comes to pick up the kids, he'll usually just say hello and nothing more. He's been ignoring my calls and texts, so I'm going to go over to our house tomorrow when I know he'll be there to have a discussion with him. I'll post an update. Thanks for all the advice. Update. As it turns out, many of you were right. My husband was lying about not knowing my sister was gay. Since he wasn't responding to my calls or texts, I went over to the house when I knew he'd be there to talk. After we sat down, I told him that the only way I would even consider working this out was if he told me the real reason he was suddenly acting like this, agreed to go to couples and individual therapy to address his hurtful views, and apologized to me, the kids, and my sister. He started repeating the same things about my sister being a bad influence on the kids and not aligning with his moral compass. I became frustrated and told him to cut the nonsense. I said that if he didn't tell me what was really going on, I would walk out and he would never see me or the children again. I have never spoken to him like that before, And I think it startled him because he confessed everything. Long story short, he's been having an affair for the past year. Now that I think about it, it makes sense. I had noticed he was pulling away from me, but thought it was just stress from work and the kids. He admitted that when he said he had to go into the office on weekends, it was an excuse to see her. Sometimes he'd take a half day at work to be with her until it was time to pick up the kids. In his words, he was neutral about my sister being gay until his girlfriend opened his eyes. Apparently, when he mentioned my sister to her, she was shocked and started sending him lots of podcasts and YouTube videos on the subject. So for the past year, he's been falling down a right-wing rabbit hole and I had no idea. He said he knew I wouldn't accept his new beliefs, so he felt forced to hide them from me. He also admitted that he's been wanting a divorce for a while, not just because of the affair. After consuming these videos and podcasts, he started to resent me because I'm not a traditional wife who stays at home to cook, clean, and take care of the kids so that he can relax after work. He said seeing my sister kiss her girlfriend was the final straw because he realized the extent of what the children were being exposed to. So he pretended not to know about her sexuality and made it a huge issue. In his mind, this was the perfect solution because he could finally make me see things his way and become a stay-at-home mom, or I would divorce him, and he could come away looking like the good guy. Then he said he's going for full custody to protect the kids. I'm not proud of it, but I lost it. I called him a lot of names and told him it would be a cold day in hell before he even got 50/50th custody. I said if he wants to talk to me again, he'd have to contact my lawyer. Then I stormed out before I did something I'd regret. Honestly, this is a total nightmare, and I feel partially to blame. 13 years together, and I didn't notice he was changing. I didn't think he was the type to get sucked into this sort of thing, but I guess I was wrong. I also never expected him to be a cheater, so maybe I didn't know him as well as I thought. On the other hand, the comments on my last post have made me think, and I've realized I wasn't very happy in our marriage. A lot of people were asking what we even talk about, and the honest answer is we don't. We started dating when I was 19, and he was my second boyfriend ever. About a year into our relationship, I remember feeling unsure about us, and then bam, I got pregnant with our son. It all happened so fast. He proposed, and I said yes. We had never discussed marriage before, and looking back, I'm pretty sure I would have said no if I wasn't pregnant. We had a long engagement, but we were basically married right after, because I moved in with him immediately to raise our son. I feel so foolish. I think I was pretty naive at the start of our relationship. I never thought to have any in-depth conversations about politics, family, and religion. I'm realizing now that I mostly stayed in the marriage because it felt easier than the alternative and better for the kids. I genuinely thought he was a good man and father. Now I'm remembering numerous moments in our relationship that I brushed off and fights we had that add up to a bigger picture. I think part of why I've been so frazzled and exhausted lately is because he was doing the bare minimum, leaving me and my sister to pick up the slack. I don't regret the marriage because it led to my kids, but I regret not seeing everything sooner and getting out. Right now, my kids are my #1 priority. When I got back, I sat them down and we had a long conversation about their father, his views, and LGBTQ+ rights in general. I made it very clear that I would support them no matter what. I'm also looking into getting all 3 of them into counseling to help them deal with this. We are temporarily staying with my sister while I sort out the divorce. We have separate bank accounts, but I need to figure out how to sell the house because I don't think I can afford it alone. And he definitely can't. There are some townhomes opening up in my sister's neighborhood that I'm going to try for so my kids can walk to her house. My sister has been incredibly supportive during this entire ordeal. She and I had a long talk about everything with lots of hugging and crying. I feel awful for bringing a bigot around her, and I don't think I can ever repay her for all the help and love she has given me and the children. She and her girlfriend have been helping out with the kids and the divorce stuff. Since her girlfriend is currently in town, I decided that I want me and the kids to get to know her better. This weekend, we're all going to the museum to hopefully take the kids' minds off everything. As the days passed, the reality of my situation began to sink in. I was now a single mother, navigating a sea of uncertainty. The betrayal from my husband was a wound that ran deep, but I knew I had to stay strong for my children. I decided to consult a lawyer to understand my options regarding custody and the divorce proceedings. During our meeting, I laid out everything that had happened: the affair, his sudden shift in beliefs, and his threats about custody. My lawyer was sympathetic and assured me that the courts generally favor the primary caregiver, especially when the other parent has been neglectful or has introduced instability into the children's lives. We discussed the possibility of seeking full custody with supervised visitation for my husband, given his recent behavior and the potential negative influence of his new partner on the children. I expressed my concerns about his girlfriend's extremist views and how they might affect the kids. My lawyer suggested documenting everything: text messages, emails, any interactions that could support my case. Meanwhile, at my sister's house, the kids were adjusting to the new norm. My son, being the oldest, was particularly affected. One evening, I found him sitting alone in the backyard, staring up at the stars. "Hey, sweetheart," I said gently, sitting down beside him. "Penny for your thoughts?" He sighed. "Just don't understand why Dad would say those things about Auntie. She's always been there for us." "I know, honey," I replied, putting my arm around him. "Sometimes people change, and not always for the better. What's important is that we remember who we are and what we believe in." "Do we have to see him again?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath. "That's something we're going to figure out together. I won't force you to do anything you're not comfortable with, but he is your father, and maybe, in time, things will change." He nodded slowly, leaning into me. "I just wish things could go back to the way they were." "I do too," I admitted, "but we can't change the past. We can only move forward." My daughters were coping differently. The younger one, being only 6, didn't fully grasp the situation. She missed her dad, but was easily distracted by the activities my sister organized. The 8-year-old was quieter than usual, often clinging to me or her aunt. One afternoon, I decided to have a girls' day out. We went to a nearby park, had a picnic, and played games. Seeing them laugh and run around brought a sense of normalcy that I desperately needed. My sister's girlfriend, Emily, joined us later. She brought homemade cookies and a craft kit to make friendship bracelets. The girls took to her immediately, and it warmed my heart to see them bonding. "Thank you for being here," I told Emily when the kids were occupied. She smiled kindly. "We're family. That's what we do." Over the next few weeks, Emily became a regular presence in our lives. The kids adored her, and she brought a sense of stability and joy that we all needed. My sister seemed happier too, and it was clear that their relationship was strong and loving. Meanwhile, communication from my husband was minimal. He had reached out through his lawyer, contesting my bid for full custody. He claimed that my work schedule made me an unfit parent, and that the children would be better off with him. I was furious but determined not to let his tactics intimidate me. I gathered letters from the children's teachers, neighbors, and even the pediatrician, all attesting to my involvement and care for the kids. My sister wrote a heartfelt statement about our arrangement and how I always put the children's needs first. The court date was set, and the days leading up to it were tense. I tried to shield the kids from the stress, focusing on maintaining a routine and providing as much love and support as possible. On the day of the hearing, my sister accompanied me for moral support. As we entered the courtroom, I saw my husband sitting with his lawyer and a woman I assumed was his girlfriend. She gave me a cold stare, and I felt a surge of anger mixed with sadness. The proceedings were intense. My husband's lawyer painted a picture of me as an absentee mother who prioritized her career over her family. They brought up my long work hours and insinuated that I left the children in the care of an unfit guardian, my sister. My lawyer countered by highlighting my role as the primary financial provider and caregiver, emphasizing that my sister's involvement was a testament to our strong family support system, not neglect. We presented evidence of my husband's infidelity and sudden ideological shift, arguing that his actions were not in the best interest of the children. When my husband took the stand, he spoke about his newfound beliefs and claimed that he was only trying to protect the kids from harmful influences. His words felt like those of a stranger. This was not the man I had known for 13 years. The turning point came when the judge asked to speak privately with our son, given his age. After their conversation, the judge looked thoughtful. In the end, the court awarded me full custody, with supervised visitation rights granted to my husband. The judge expressed concern over his recent behavior and the potential negative impact on the children. I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. While I was glad to have secured the children's well-being, it was heartbreaking to see how far our relationship had deteriorated. Life began to settle into a new rhythm. We moved into one of the townhomes near my sister, and the kids started at their new school. They seemed happier, more relaxed. My son joined the soccer team, my older daughter started ballet classes, and the youngest was thriving in her art club. I continued to work, but I made a conscious effort to be more present. I adjusted my schedule where I could, and made sure to have quality time with the kids. My sister and Emily were an integral part of our lives, and we often had family dinners and outings together. One evening, as we were all gathered for a barbecue, my son approached me. "Mom," he began, "I know things have been hard, but I just wanted to say thank you." "For what, sweetheart?" I asked, surprised. "For everything. For being here, for standing up for us, and for making sure we're okay." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Oh, honey, that's what moms are for." He hugged me tightly, and in that moment I knew we were going to be okay. As for my husband, he attended a few supervised visits, but over time, his contact became sporadic. The kids didn't seem to mind, and I didn't push the issue. I heard through mutual acquaintances that his relationship with his girlfriend didn't last, and he eventually moved out of state. I focused on healing and building a better future for my family. I started attending therapy, both individually and with the kids, which helped us process the trauma and move forward. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the hardest experiences lead to the most significant growth. I learned to trust my instincts, to value open communication, and to surround myself with people who uplift and support me. My sister and Emily got married the following year in a beautiful ceremony by the lake. The kids were part of the wedding party, and it was a joyous celebration of love and family. I don't regret the past because it led me to where I am today. I'm grateful for my children, for my sister, and for the strength I found within myself. Life may not have turned out the way I expected, but in many ways, it's better than I ever could have imagined.